Hello everyone, this is your captain speaking, and welcome to the stream. It's good to see you all again. Today we are going to be reading more, as you can see above, of the I Hate to Housekeep book, When and How to Keep House Without Losing Your Mind. A hardcover bestseller at $3.75. I have no idea how much this copy was bought for. But this is I actually have two copies. One copy is falling apart, that's how old it is, and this copy is not. But yes, welcome. We're gonna get started. We are on chapter 6. Which is titled, we're on chapter 6, and this is a playlist, once again, as usual, by the Jazz Hop Cafe. Chapter 6, How to be Tight-Fisted Without Having It Show. Mingy is a fine old Scottish word that rhymes with stingy, but doesn't mean quite the same thing. Once upon a time, it is said, a Scotsman promised his small daughter a shilling if she would help the family to economize by eating no dinner that evening. She agreed, and he gave her the shilling, which she put under her pillow when she went to bed. Later that night, when she was sound asleep, her father quietly removed the shilling. Then he gave her no breakfast the following morning because she hadn't taken care of her money. Now there is minginess with a hey nonny. Indeed, it goes an inch beyond the proper meaning of the term. Our canny Scot was just a wee bit crooked with his wee bit lassie, and this, of course, isn't recommended. There are ways and ways of being mingy. For instance, you can out-fumble your friends at parking meters, or sidle up your stairway carpet to save wear and tear in the middle, or you can pour cheap liqueur out of a good bottle. Clearly, these things save you money, but people are bound to find you out. They'll eventually notice that you never have any parking meter nickels, and you may start sidling up your friends' stairways as well as your own through force of habit, which will look odd. As for the liqueur, they're bound to notice how the empties of Old Cutthroat pile up on the back porch, while the label on the King Charles Pride of the Regiment Scotch becomes increasingly streaked and yellowed with age. Most penny pinchers, as the home economist ladies like to call these suggestions, are pretty worthless. Either they involve saving some dreary bits of food to do something even drearier the next day, or else they have you hanging around the grocer's at the hour when he is clipping the whiskers off the old vegetables, at which time you can pick up some good buys. However, the following ideas, which I have gleaned from some of the finest, chintziest female brains I know, make a certain amount of sense. You'll never retire on them, goodness knows, but at least you can't lose. In this day and age, that's something in itself. If your dinner looks skimpier than you thought it was going to, see if you can serve something first as a separate course. This is basic psychology with a sound physiological basis. Formerly, it was the custom to serve Yorkshire pudding as a separate course before the roast. People filled up on it, you see, and ate less beef, which then lasted for another day or possibly two. You can serve your salad first with plenty of croutons in it, and soup, of course. You can combine a can of tomato soup and a can of consommé and a cup of water, heat, and serve. Consommé, by the way, is very handy to keep around. You can add a half a teaspoon of curry or powdered dill to a can of it, and to make it look really top drawer, float some avocado chunks on it. Or, you can serve the hot green or yellow vegetable first. There is a certain European pizzazz to this. And when you serve it this way, you're less apt to overcook it. You can also serve things under things. When you broil a smallish steak, for instance, put slices of bread, French bread if you have it, in the drip pan under the broiler. Serve the bread under the steak, and you have a fair optical illusion of more steak. Remember, cheaters sometimes prosper. And speaking of bread, always buy it unsliced and slice it yourself as thin as you can. This saves on calories, too. If you always keep your bread frozen, slice it when you bring it home from the baker's and then freeze it. Another thing, while fresh parsley will keep for a long time if you wet it and put it in a covered jar in the refrigerator, it keeps best in the freezer. Wrap small bouquets of it in aluminum foil and put it in there. You can't use the frozen kind for garnishing very well though, so you might as well keep a jar of it too. Whenever you make hamburgers, always mix a grated raw potato with the meat. This stretches things a bit and makes the hamburger juicier too. And never throw away the inedible breakfast cereal the children sandbagged you into getting for the cute little cutouts on the box. You can always crush it a little more and use it for casserole toppings or make weight in meatloaf or meatballs. Also, bread seldom gets so stale it won't make good French toast. This is great for lunch or breakfast anytime, and it is a prettier brown if you add a teaspoon of sugar to the raw egg and milk. Speaking of old stale food, one of the few others you can do anything pleasant about is stale dried up cheese. Shove it into your meat grinder with a couple of good-sized chunks of raw onion and grind hard. The moisture in the onion turns it into a good spreadable spread for sandwiches or canapes. No matter how you personally feel about margarine, keep a pound of it around. Its taste isn't too easily detectable through peanut butter or other strong-flavored sandwich spreads, nor in many recipes that call for all butter but have a marked personal flavor of their own, such as chocolate or spice. Purist cooks wouldn't do this, but that needn't concern us. You can get as much as an extra half cupful of flour out if you'll cut off the ends of your paper flour sacks, open them up, and pour. You'll get more sugar, too, by doing the same thing with paper sugar sacks. Also, it is a good miserly move to pour a little water into supposedly empty ketchup or chili bottles and slosh it about. You can baste things like meatloaf with this, or use it to eke out the ketchup or chili from a new bottle. Finally, there's a much-touted system of making light cream whip by adding the white of an egg. The way you do this is to whip each separately, then combine them. If it's a pretty fair light cream, this will work reasonably well, but don't try it with half and half, the half cream and half homogenized milk that passes for coffee cream in many places. It will be merely frothy and it will never do for your Irish coffee. And when you get down to brass tacks, there's not much difference between the cost of a half cupful of light cream plus an egg and the cost of a half cupful of whipping cream, so it's really not worth bothering about. So much for penny pinchers. Then, there is the minginess that is happily confused with fashionable sparseness. Any girl who puts her back into it can think of dozens of these in a jiffy. Bare windows, we couldn't curtain off that marvelous view. The light of one fat candle to dine by, Ronald does so enjoy his churroscuro. Churroscuro? No, not his turtle. You almost had it. No dessert. Dessert is so banal. In truth, of course, curtains cost money, and so do enough candles to make the food visible, and dessert takes some doing as well as some ingredients. The best kind of minginess is the sort that doesn't bother other people and doesn't show. As an example, to get right down to where the work is, if you frequently replace somewhat used cakes of facial soap with plump new ones, you can chop or shave the old ones into mason jars. Then you can add some boiling water, and the resultant soap jelly will be good for washing dishes, or fine lingerie, or the car, or a little boy's mouth out. In fact, you can spike this with sal soda to give it more vigor, and use it for washing linoleum and woodwork. Notice the bonus here. While you're being tight-fisted, you're seeming free-handed because your family and friends are usually using fat, fresh cakes of soap. Then there is the more ordinary type of nickel squeezing, which brings you no side benefits of that sort, but it still conserves cash and offends no one and is nobody's business except your own. Like this, you can cut up an old rubber glove across and across the double thickness, including the fingers, thus producing all sorts and sizes of practical rubber bands, and who's to tell? The children might at their show and tell sessions at school, but chances are good they'll find more interesting items to contribute, such as the fact that Daddy never wears pajamas. Consider the case for the dish rag. This is the age of the plastic sponge, but a dish rag is cheaper. For one thing, it usually costs less to begin with, and of course, you can knit or crochet them for nothing out of odds and ends of twine. Also, because a dish rag looks spiritless right from the start, you expect nothing else from it, and you put up with it longer. Whoopsies. A sponge, it says, if you're bound and determined to use sponges anyway, put them through the wash occasionally with a good dose of bleach. A sponge, on the other hand, starts out with a certain plump exuberance and ends as a festered lily, which you demote to the basement, but then you have to buy another. Therefore, it is a good mingy policy to use dish rags and hang them somewhere out of sight. The reason for all the to-do about minginess here is this: the random or somewhat trapped housewife often hates to spend money on things to housekeep with. There are so many other better ways to spend it. Here again, she differs from the spotless or career housewife. When a manufacturer comes out with an 89-cent spray can of mattress pad freshener, the spotless housekeeper hails it with delight. Now she has another little duty to perform, conscientiously and well. But the random housewife's lower lip starts trembling. Being a little unsure of herself anyway, she thinks maybe she should buy a can of it, if that's what everybody's doing. Not that there's anything wrong with her mattress pads, after all, if you wash them and sun them every once in a while. Still, though, you don't have to keep up with the Joneses, you shouldn't slide back with the Callahacks. And yet, she just doesn't want to spend 89 cents in that fashion. That 89 cents is just a little more than 1/320th of a one-way trip from New York to London, and from there, about 1 out of 3/18ths of a lovely cruise from Southampton to Cape Town. Or it is 1/20th of a good permanent wave, or 1/10th of 2 theater tickets, or half a pound of pretty fair chocolates, or, if she has bread instead of hyacinths on her mind, if she is putting somebody through medical school or nursery school, that 89 cents still looms. Scratch the mattress pad freshener. Here, then, for the minimum housekeeper is a minimum list of cleaners that save money, as well as shelf space. For there's no point in cluttering your quarters with 5 different cleaners for 5 different objects if just one of them will do the job. This list doesn't include those pantry items, salt, vinegar, baking soda, and so forth, which you keep around anyway to cook with. We'll come to those a little later on. The Rock Bottom 8. 1. The big soap jar mentioned earlier. 2. Washing machine detergent. 3. Cleansing powder. 4. Steel wool soap pads. 5. Household ammonia. 6. Sal soda. 7. Household bleach or Havel water. 8. Paste wax. Plus dishwasher detergent if you have a dishwasher. Plus borax in a hard water town. This list isn't entirely my own doing. I've checked it with some mighty tight-fisted ladies whose houses look nonetheless quite as good as anyone else's. One of them considered the list not rock bottom enough. Ammonia for windows, she said? Flapdoodle. Good hot water and an old linen napkin, that's all you need. And she does have shiny windows as well as well-developed biceps. I always thought ammonia or vinegar made it easier. Obviously, there are as many ways to house clean as there are to cure a cold. Your own rock bottom list might differ slightly or radically from this one, and if it does, don't call me, I'll call you. Now, let's dolly up for a closer look at them one by one. The soap jar. If you use it to wash linoleum, add a little ammonia. To wash anything painted, add some sal soda instead. The ammonia might hurt the paint. For anything delicate, like car finishes or china or underwear, it's fine as is. After all, it was mild facial soap to begin with before you gentled it down some more with the water. Washing machine detergent. You can use this for everything up there except the car and a whole lot more. Diapers, floors, appliances, and other things. Just read the label. Those talented home ec girls at the larger soap companies understand the basic chemical differences between a soap and a detergent, which is more than I do, and you don't need to either if you follow their directions. Pay special attention to the part that says to rinse thoroughly whatever will be next to someone's skin. Clothes, blankets, diapers. Cleansing powder. Most of them contain bleach now, and that's the kind to get. If the colors of the can label look terrible in your kitchen, you can pour the cleansing powder into a big copper, glass, or plastic salt shaker, or use an empty glass jar with a screw on top, which you punch a few holes in. Notice that word, few. Cleansing powder lasts longer if you're sparing with the number of holes you sprinkle it out of. The true mingy housekeeper doesn't uncover or punch out more than a couple. Steel wool soap pads. These are an orchid on a true rock bottom list. Instead of steel wool soap pads, you could use wadded up brown paper for scrubbing pan bottoms, not to mention powdered eggshells, and let's not. These are highly recommended in Aunt Lucy's Compendium of Home Helps, including etiquette tips for young ladies. Or, to clean an oven, you could mix scouring powder and ammonia into a paste and scrub it with a brush or a rag. You could get along without them, you see, you just wouldn't live so long. But whatever you do, never get carried away and throw prudence to the four winds and use a whole soap pad at once. Cut it in half. This sharpens the scissors and makes the pads go further. You can even baby those pieces if you care that much. You can dry them in a warmish oven after they've been wet or over the pilot light, or wrap them tightly in aluminum foil so they won't rust away. Don't keep one in a cup of water, though, as misguided experts have recommended. It will become unbearably slimy. In any case, wear gloves. Even though you don't have a manicure to worry about, the soap pad will roughen your fingertips, which will eventually rip your nylons. Or you can grip that little piece with a spring-type clothespin. Household ammonia. This gives your sudsy water more enthusiasm. Be sure to add the ammonia to the water instead of the other way around, or it will be awfully fumy. You can use it to clean the oven. Sprinkle some over charred grease at night, shut the oven door, and leave it. In the morning it will come clean with a damp rag, or at the most a soap pad. Then there are the windows. Actually, the best way to keep your windows clean is to stop smoking, but an easier way to have clean windows is to wash them with a mild ammonia water solution applied with a piece of something lintless like linen or a chamois. A chunk of an old velveteen skirt, by the way, is a good chamois substitute. If you ever do windows inside and out, remember to use horizontal strokes on one side and verticals on the other. Then you know where the smudge is. Sal soda. The Minji housekeeper keeps a box of it by the washing machine as well as under the sink because a couple of tablespoonfuls get things cleaner and brighten colors. It's good for charred pans too, like the pan you scorch the peas in. Add a tablespoonful to a couple of inches of water and boil it for 5 minutes. And add it to warm water and detergent to wash anything painted. Another thing. It takes the misery out of washing oven racks. Fill a wash tub with hot water, add a good couple tablespoons, and soak the racks about an hour. Then the baked-on grease will come off with relative ease. And use it for washing walls. Add it to the detergent. Remember to always wash from the bottom up. If you start at the top and work down, rivulets run into the dirty part like tears down a small boy's dirty face, and they're hard to scrub out, too. At least, that's what the professionals advise, but I know a lady who disagrees. She has washed many a wall in her time, and she says, but if you wash them from the bottom up, then dirty water eventually runs into the clean part, which is worse. I take no sides on this. Do it the easiest way for you, and don't use too much water, and rinse as you go. If you end up with a slight streak or two, just remember that worse things have happened and the world still wags. Household bleach. Or Havel water. These are mainly for bleaching yellowed or mildewed things or removing stains, see the previous pages 37 and 38, or keeping an old, somewhat pockmarked porcelain sink white. Put a layer of paper in the sink, soak it with bleach, and leave it for half an hour or so. If it's a new porcelain sink, don't do this. The cleansing powder with bleach in it is enough to keep it white, and it's not so rough. This Havel water is a bleach you keep bumping into in household books, but just try to find any. 3 drugstores. I'm sorry, what does it think I said? What I said was, this Havel water is a bleach you keep bumping into in household books. Anyway, but just try to find any. 3 drugstores, I asked, thought it was a cologne, and my grocer gave me a blank stare. However, to give this book an authoritative note, I felt I should mention it. Indeed, I went even further and got the recipe for it out of a Canadian convent where the girls bleach their own bleachables. If you ever feel compelled to make Havel water, this is how. Spelled Javelle. 1 pound of sal soda, 1 quart of boiling water, half a pound of chloride of lime, 2 quarts cold water. Put your sal soda into a big enamel or granite pan and add the boiling water. Give me a quick second. And add the boiling water. Now mix the lime in the cold water. Let it settle for about half an hour, then pour the clear liquid into the dissolved soda. Bottle it and keep it in a dark place. As you can see, this is a pretty stout mixture. If you spilled any, I'd bet it would dissolve the kitchen floor. I wouldn't think about doing it myself with commercial bleach so readily available in nice plastic jugs, and I'll take no responsibility if anyone else does. It is included here purely in the interests of scientific thoroughness. So back to the bought and bottled bleach. This is good for disinfecting objects like breadboards or chopping blocks, or sick room dishes if someone has something dreadful. On this last point, I feel, with many a random housekeeper, that a family germ is a family germ and you're gonna get it. And if you're gonna get it, you're going to get it. Still, there may be things our family hasn't caught yet. At any rate, it's a good point to keep in mind. Paste wax. For the furniture and floors. Caranuba paste wax is best because it contains the most wax. It's also the hardest to put on. You can get a liquid paste wax that's easier. Don't use it on asphalt tile or rubber tile or a sheet rubber floor though, or you'll be a sorry girl. The solvents in it will eat up the rubber, soften the asphalt, and make the colors run, and you'll have a true mess underfoot. If you have this sort of floor, you might stop and ask yourself, do I really have to wax it at all? And if you decide that you can leave it unwaxed and still meet your maker unafraid, then do so. After all, the only kind of wax you can use on it is self-polishing wax, which has a water base and doesn't last as long, and you'll have a new career on your hands just keeping wax on the parts that get traffic. So why not just keep it swept and damp mop it once in a while and otherwise leave it alone? The mingy-minded, floor-minded housekeeper must keep this in mind. The big thing with floors isn't wax, it's buffing. A good coat of wax once or twice a year after the floor has been washed and promptly dried is all you need. For buffing, use an electric buffer if you have one or can rent one, or an old wool sweater wrapped around a heavy weight, or have the children slide about in their stocking feet, or invite your husband to join you in a genial cha-cha. All of this keeps the floors in nice condition. Speaking of stocking feet, it's wise to keep a few pairs of Japanese straw slippers handy by the door for female guests wearing spike heels. That's because of those thousands of pounds pressure each heel exerts on the half square inch of floor it stands on. Vinyl snaps back pretty well, but cork, linoleum, wood, and carpet don't recover. One tends to forget this in the interests of etiquette, but your spike-heeled guest would probably be glad of a chance to rest her feet anyway. If your husband is a vice president or a stock boy who can sneak desk blotters home under his coat, have him do so, or buy some. Then put them inside the front and back doors on rainy days to protect the floors and the rug. Another thing, a scrub brush nailed upside down on the porch makes a good mud scraper. You may have noticed that nothing's been said yet about furniture polish. This is because the wax takes care of the floor and furniture both. Now, where furniture is concerned, some people say wax and some people say polish, and you won't get any fight out of me. You just can't use them alternately, that's all. Waxing a table one week and polishing it the next, unless you remove the old wax first. Polish has a higher shine usually, and wax has a mellower gleam that lasts longer. Both work fine on porcelain appliances if you want to go that far. You just make up your mind. If you're of the polish persuasion, you can make it yourself more cheaply than you can buy it. It won't look as fancy in the old cider jug as the commercial kind does in the spray can, but don't think you're not paying for that spray top. Buy a quart of boiled linseed oil and a pint of turpentine and mix them together. In this way, you have a quart and a half of good furniture polish for about $1.30. The same amount of the other kind costs you about $2.10. Right there, you've made 80 cents. And don't forget about fronts as well as tops. It's the fronts of chests and desk drawers that get the most finger marks. Fronts are on the eye level of people sitting down. Gonna drink a bit of water. Chapter 7. Salt, Soda, Vinegar, Lemons, or Aunt Lucy Done Told Me. It is hard to be honest. Habit keeps getting in the way, but if you start by being honest about small things, you can work up to being honest about the big ones. So let us be candid here about a few pantry items and what they're good for. The fact is, few of them do as good a job as neatly or as quickly as things you can buy. In the first place, most of the salt, soda, vinegar, and lemon suggestions you hear originally came from Aunt Lucy's Compendium, published in 1862, last revision in 1898. They're like a toasting fork compared to the automatic pop-up toaster with a dial-it-yourself color range and 4 slots for bread. Also, some of them probably come under the heading of Aunt Lucy's wishful thinking. A pinch of salt in the water keeps most cut flowers fresh longer, she says. Well, maybe so. I've done it, and it didn't seem to hurt the flowers any. But I didn't do it under test conditions, and so I never knew how long the flowers would have stayed fresh anyway. If you'd divide your peonies in half sometime and add salt to one vaseful and an aspirin to another, there's a vocal aspirin school too, you might find out. The cheapest way I know of to make flowers last longer is to keep on cutting their stems. Even when you've just snipped them in the garden and brought them in, cut them again. Otherwise, their little pores seal themselves faster than you'd believe, and they don't get the water they need. You do this every day or so, as long as it seems to pay off. Still, many of these pantry odds and ends have their value, especially for the mingy housekeeper intent on saving every possible cent for more interesting things. You never have to spend money for brass or copper polish, for instance, if you mix equal parts of salt and flour into a stiffish paste with vinegar. Then smear it on the object the way you'd frost a cake, let it dry, rinse it off, and wipe it. Or just rub it, rinse it, and wipe it. This is closely related to the salt sprinkled on a cut lemon system, but it works better. Some people say, why polish copper at all? Just lacquer it when it's new. But other people prefer a certain midway point rather than the new raw pink look, and even though you lacquered it at the midway point, it would eventually peel and discolor anyway and need removing. If this is a brass fireplace fender we're talking about, or anything else that gets hot, the finish becomes not only scruffulous looking, but baked on, and it's a two-fisted day's work to get it off. Here, then, are some of Aunt Lucy's old gags. Many of them save you some pin money, and in any case are good things to know about. How else would you get nut meats out whole besides soaking them overnight in salt water? Things to do with salt. You can add a pinch to whipping cream to make it whip faster, or sprinkle it on grapefruit to make it taste better. Or add a teaspoonful to the water you're boiling, a cracked egg in, and the contents won't ooze out. You can remove perspiration stains with it, use a handful to a quart of water and soak the stained item for an hour. And you can set colors with it in cotton. If you're doubtful about the dye, soak the fabric 20 minutes, a quart of water to a half cupful of salt. You can perk up a fire with it, throw a handful on, and then you won't need to fetch more kindling and start all over again. You can sprinkle plain salt or rock salt on icy steps in cold weather to melt the ice. Just be careful it doesn't land on the grass or on any place where you'd like to have some come spring. If you're not too soft-hearted, you can dissolve garden slugs with salt into sad little puddles. Sprinkle it on them. Here again, be sure the slug is on the pavement first. Then come in and gargle with it, a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda per glass of warm water. You can clean drains with it too. A big broom and mop woman tells me it clears drains of grease and bad smells if you pour a strong solution of hot water and salt down the sink drain every week or so, and I see no reason to doubt it. Then there's vinegar. If you can't get the soapy feel out of something you're washing, add vinegar to the rinse. Boil a little in a pan with a seemingly built-in fish or cabbage smell, and the smell will go away. Vinegar cleans out narrow-necked bottles, too. Pour in a little with hot water. If the bottle or vase is in bad shape, add some pebbles or rice and shake it. You can keep poached eggs from separating if you add a teaspoonful of vinegar to the water. Maybe you'll like it for washing windows, too. Add some to the hot water. Then, if your feet are tired, sit down and soak them in it. Just vinegar and warm water. For no good reason I know of, it makes them feel better. And consider baking soda. It is truly a tremendous polish for chrome. Just rub it on dry, using a dry cloth, then use it on a damp cloth to clean oven doors. Is that section? Yes, it is. And consider the lemon. It's good for marble. Wrap half a lemon in a cloth, dip it in tepid water, then in borax, and rub the marble surface. If this doesn't work, I don't know what will except for an electric buffer. If you can borrow one, do so, and it will restore your luster. You can use the lemon juice in water as a mouthwash. It leaves a fresh feel and taste. Or use it as a substitute for cuticle remover. Whitens the nails, too. A few drops of lemon juice will shine your shoes if you're out of polish. Rub it on gnat bites, too, if you're ever gnat bitten, and they won't itch so much. And if you've all the time in the world and plenty of sunshine, you can remove rust stains with it. Let your rust-stained linen or cotton bleach in the sun after you've wet it with lemon juice. If you don't have all the time in the world, see page 35. And if you want to win the mink-lined sink for minginess of purest ray serene, start saving up and drying your lemon and orange peels to use as kindling. What to do about bacon grease? Like old razor blades, this often poses a problem. If you use bacon grease to cook with, you can keep it in an old drip coffee maker, and the sieve part will strain it. You can buy grease savers with built-in sieves, but it's an uninspiring way to spend your money. If you don't cook with it and have a good disposer, you can pour it down, but make sure you flush it with lots of cold water or the grease will clog the pipes. If you haven't a disposer or think you might want to use that bacon fat sometime but you're not sure, you can gradually fill up an empty beer can or soup can. Then you can hide it in anything you consider attractive, like a British toffee tin with a hinged lid or whatever will cover up the beer can with reasonable aplomb. Then, when the beer can is full of hardened fat and you're tired of it, you put it in the garbage, but not the outside container, and then you start over. Then there is the notepad and the pencil. They are valuable for other things than grocery lists. My mother understood their theory and practice very well. Understandably reluctant to see a whole batch of cookies disappear before dinner time, she'd often leave notes in the cookie jar. When my brother and I reached in after school, we'd find the loving admonition, "Keep your big mitts off," and lowered our sights to graham crackers. Also, you need labels and magnets. With the labels, you differentiate maple syrup from fat frying oil should they end up in identical mason jars. Or you mark frozen foods or pre-made sandwiches, and so on. Sometimes it's a good idea to make a sandwich for yourself when you make lunchbox sandwiches. Knowing you'll be eating the same thing, you may turn in a better performance. Put the mayonnaise between 2 lettuce leaves in the middle of the sandwich so it won't soak the bread while it waits. With the magnets, which come on little cards at the hardware store, you do this. Stick a couple on the bottom of your vacuum cleaner so they'll catch pins and tacks before they get into the bag. Or glue one to the underside of a kitchen shelf, then stick a thumbtack into the eraser of a pencil, and attach the pencil thus to the magnet where it will hang handy and visible but out of the way. Or glue one to the end of a long stick if you hate to bend over and use it to pick up stray needles and pins when you sew. Or sew 1 or 2 to aprons or pot holders so they'll stick to the stove or the refrigerator. Or use one to hold a damp dish towel to the side of the stove so it will dry quickly. Or use one to hold a recipe card to some metal surface out of the way of the spatter. Or use several to make a bulletin board out of your refrigerator door, just strew them about like scatter pins to hold papers. Or glue one of the little creatures to the water pipe outside your house as a good secret place to keep an extra house key. Another important kitchen reminder. Should anyone give you a quaint old hand-painted wall plaque which says, "No matter where I feed my guests, they always like my kitchen best," cross out the final S in guests and change they to he and change like to likes. Or better still, throw the whole thing away insomuch as this particular wall plaque is hard on a sensitive ear. Another handy kitchen item is a big drop cloth, the kind painters use. Spread it out to keep the floor clean whenever things start to look messy, as on rainy days or at Easter egg dyeing time. You can make handy kitchen gadgets too and amaze your friends depending on how easily your friends are amazed. If you need a knife holder, glue or screw wooden thread spools by their bottoms to the inside of a cupboard door, as close together as they'll go. The resultant slots between them hold the knife blade, but won't let the handle slip through. If you felt like it, you could paint them to match the cupboard door. And you can make a string holder. Bore a hole through a kitchen shelf, then find a squat empty peanut butter jar and punch a hole through its screw-on lid. Center this hole over the hole you just bored and nail the lid down. Now put a ball of string into the glass jar, lead the string gently through the hole in the lid and the hole in the shelf, then screw the jar upside down into the lid. On second thought, why don't you just keep your ball of string in an old teapot with the end of the string threaded through the spout? It's a lot simpler, it just won't amaze anybody. Furthermore, you can make plates stand up against the back wall of a cupboard by using a hairpin and cellophane tape. In this wise: bend the ends of the hairpin up and spraddle them somewhat so they look like the legs of someone lying down, toes up. Tape this down on the shelf, toes toward you, so they'll catch the rim of the plate. Finally, a few kitchen oddments. A good way to clean the blades of an electric beater is to run the beater for a moment with the blades in a bowl of sudsy detergent. When you make lids for lidless casserole dishes out of aluminum foil, don't throw them away. You can just wash them and use them over and over. Now, if your kitchen hasn't enough eating room for little children, a cookie sheet spread across an open kitchen drawer makes an emergency table. If your kitchen is infested with deep cupboards you can't see or reach to the back of, you'd better phone a carpenter and have him equip them with pull-out shelves on ball-bearing or nylon glides. And if you stamp heavily on your big empty cereal and cracker boxes before you put them in the wastebasket, it not only relieves tensions, but enables you to cram more boxes in. Finally, before we proceed to greener pastures and somewhat larger issues, let's take a look at 3 things you can do about paper. You can beware of buying many disposable items like paper towels. It is cheaper to use terry cloth hand towels in the kitchen. If you feel like you must have a paper towel rack, put it near the stove. Then the towels will be used for draining things instead of wiping hands, and they'll last longer. If you wrap many lunch basket sandwiches, you might as well save the waxed paper that comes in cracker boxes. It's usually heavier than the other kind. When you're out of correspondence envelopes or don't want to buy any, you can mail the paper you wrote on. Write only on one side, fold the paper in thirds, and seal the open edges with any sort of tape. Then you address and stamp the outside surface, and the post office will accept it for first-class mailing. What did I just drop? You can get by without stamps, too, for in-town mailings. Just reverse the positions of your friend's address and your own return address and omit the stamp. Then, the mailman will return your letter to your friend for postage. Next, a big paddy wagon will drive up and take you away to the federal pokey for defrauding the U.S. mails. Thus, you saved 5 cents, plus board and room for the next 20 years. And I think I'm gonna stop there because my throat hurts. Turns out talking for 45 minutes straight is very tiring. Or at the very least 40 minutes straight is very tiring. But we've gotten through another 2 chapters. Next is going to be chapter 8, and let me double check how many chapters there are left. Okay, there are 12 chapters left. I mean, no, not left. There are 12 chapters total, and we are just through chapter 7. So, yeah. Next chapter is going to be the rest of the Pea Patch, and that is going to be next Sunday's starting point chapter. Thank you everyone for joining me. I hope you have been enjoying Storytime Sundays. Ooh, what if I called it that? I hope you guys have been enjoying Storytime Sundays. They're really relaxing, they're soothing. I feel like it's a good way to end the week. It's just chilling out and reading a book, especially a book that I enjoy. I love reading like housekeeping books and stuff like that. So yes, I'm going to call it there for tonight. But thank you everybody so much for watching. I will be back again tomorrow to play Overwatch, probably with Cujo, as we do. But yes, Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. This has been your captain speaking. Music tonight has been provided by the Jazz Hop Cafe, and the book that we are reading is the I Hate to Housekeep book by Peg Bracken. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. This has been your captain speaking. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.